For being here today. And I think your statement that you gave before this committee and again today really speaks for itself. But I just want to confirm, given the nature, the partisan nature of this committee, do you believe that the Justice Hogue Commission, which has access to all the confidential information that is available, is really the appropriate forum to be dealing with the kind of questions that we might have here today?
I would certainly agree with that.
Now, you have stated in your written statement that was sent out that you've not been contacted by Justice Hogue or the Commission. Does that continue to be the case to this day?
Yeah, I have not been contacted by the Commission.
So, given the fact that Justice Hogue and that Commission has access to all of these top secret confidential documents, they know what the NSECOP report said, and they didn't deem it necessary to invite you or to seek your feedback at the Commission, or to even summon you, as is in the case of your committee. Do you think that you really have any evidence that you feel will advance our study into this study?
I think that's a question you'd have to ask that commission of why they didn't ask for my testimony. But as I said, I don't believe I have any personal evidence to add. Nothing new that it's already in public domain.
So I guess I'll give you an open-ended question here, Mayor Brown. You understand the purpose. You've been a parliamentarian for many years in the past. You know what these committees are here to do. And if we're putting together a study, any recommendations, given your experience, is there anything you'd like to provide to this committee? Any feedback?
Well, I do think that looking at ways to safeguard our democracy is important, and there is foreign interference that occurs, and so whether it's I would say, and it's not limited to India, but India is obviously a very high topic because of the extrajudicial killing in Surrey. But for a lot of countries, the ability to have a working relationship with the consular office is important, because if you want to go back home and you need a visa, having that productive relationship is important. But I look at other instances. Sri Lanka, we're building a Tamil genocide memorial in Brampton, and we've been recipients of active intervention and opposition, obstruction, protest, coordinated by the Sri Lankan High Commission. There's an example where we believe our democratic efforts adopted by our entire council were being challenged and subverted by a foreign government. And so, I don't think it's limited to India, but I do think diaspora communities are struggling with some of the activity of foreign consular offices. I was reading a newspaper article recently where it said there was an educational session done in Ottawa recently on foreign diplomats of what is appropriate and what is inappropriate in terms of what crosses the line. I think that's healthy. And maybe some of those standards can be set by this committee to really help clarify what veers into the political, what veers into intimidation of the community in Canada.
I really appreciate that good feedback, Mayor Brown, and I think I've only got a little bit of time left. So I'll ask, you did mention that there's been significant tensions in your community in the wake of these allegations of the extrajudicial killing, and we know that these tensions are in communities, diverse communities across Canada. What do you think the federal government can do to try to reduce those tensions and bring harmony to our communities?
I think what the government of Canada can really do is to make sure that every community knows that they're safe in Canada, that if there is any intimidation or violence against any faith group, we're not going to stand for it in this country. If there's any intelligence that any individuals, any leaders of any community, their safety is at threat, they need to be protected. The fact that we saw the killing in Surrey is a failure of public safety in Canada, that he was not protected. I know individuals in Peel who have also had the duty, have been given the duty to be warned. And that's alarming. And I hope that steps are being taken by their RCMP, public safety, and CSIS to make sure that individuals are protected in this country. And so I think the reminder is to double down on those efforts to make sure those in Canada are safe from
in my last second or two,
Yeah.
Mayor Brown, do you believe that foreign intervention actors have felt emboldened over the past few years under this Liberal government to take actions in Canada?
Well, I would hope in the last year it's the opposite. I would hope that because the activities were exposed that they're not emboldened. And I only get feedback. I don't get intelligence shared from the government of Canada, but I know on a local level with the Peel Police, the fact that it's been brought into the open, there's a level of relief by some that it's no longer sort of done behind the curtain, and that some of the people that had real fears that it's more in the public now.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Mayor Brown, for attending. I actually want to follow up on something that you said that I found quite interesting. You said that you were involved in a conference call where MP Remble Garner, in answer to Mr. McGregor's question, had raised concerns that also came from the Council General that they were not comfortable with you using the term sick nation. So are you suggesting, is it your understanding from that call that someone spoke to MP Remble Garner raising the Consul General's concern about your language being used during the campaign?
I was going to say, first of all, I don't believe that's the reason that she left the campaign, but I believe.
Sorry, I didn't ask. I asked about the details of the conference call and your answer to Mr. McGregor about you being informed by your campaign team that there were concerns from the Consul General raised by MP Remble Garner not to use the term sick nation. Can you please confirm that that is what was discussed on your conference call?
Correct. Do you want me to expand further?
Sure. If you can tell me the details of who asked MP Remble Garner to raise the language you were being used.
So the concern that was raised was that I had used the term on a number of occasions, Sikh Nation, and the Consul General had expressed directly to MP Garner that was something that obviously they didn't agree with, that it could be viewed in nationalistic terms towards the Sikh community. And so at the conference call, I had a deputy national campaign manager, Jaskaran Sandhu, who we sort of assigned to talk to Michelle about it after the conference call. And what was agreed upon is that I wouldn't use the word Sikh Nation. I'd use the word Sikh Qom.
Do you think, sorry, I have limited time. Do you think it's appropriate for a foreign government to send a message to a sitting MP that you should be changing the language because it's not welcomed by that foreign nation? Do you think that's an appropriate election activity by a foreign government? And do you regret accepting their advice of changing your language, not based on your campaign or constituent feedback, but because the Consul General asked MP Remble Garner to tell you that they did not appreciate that language? Do you think that's acceptable in a Canadian election race?
Well, I didn't get the chance to finish what I was saying before, but I said what we changed it to was Sikh Qom, which is the Punjabi word for nation. And it was.
Thank you. But my question was around, do you think it's appropriate for a foreign government to ask a sitting MP to speak as a co-chair on a leadership race, to raise their objections to your campaign, not based on constituents, but based on that foreign government's opinion? Do you think I think that constitutes foreign interference pretty clearly? Foreign interference doesn't matter about the outcome. It's the intention to have that foreign government influence the actions in Canadian elections. Do you think that that was an appropriate action for a foreign government in a Canadian election?
I certainly think that the consul generals in India have been more robust in their opinions than some of us would be comfortable with.
Thank you. Thank you. I'm glad you had acknowledged it's not something you're comfortable with. So you mentioned also earlier that you said that the Indian government, through the consul general, had expressed displeasure previously with your positions on things. How specifically did they express displeasure? Did they, as articles are reporting, did they suggest that they were going to speak to volunteers about not signing up voters for you? Did they uninvite you from attending events? Did they suggest that they would provide funds and campaign support to other campaigns? How exactly did they show displeasure?
So I've never had a direct threat like that from the Indian government. So it's never been something as direct as saying, we're not going to, we're going to raise funds for someone else, or tell people not to sign up memberships. But in previous occasions, when there's been positions that I have taken that the government of India doesn't support, I would hear directly from the consul general that
don't you think
why they don't support it.
Don't you think as an elected member, the only people that your position should be, the feedback you should be hearing from, are the people that actually elect you?
Well, I would say what is the greatest determination for me is what's the best interest of my residents, and to do what is in their best interest, to fight for what is in their best interest. But I would say it is not unusual in Canada to have consul generals from multiple nations that are very vocal in their advocacy.
Do you think
Thank you, Ms. O'Connell.
I just want to follow up on a line of questioning that my colleague, Mr. Lloyd, asked you about Commissioner Hogue. Now, as you are aware, Commissioner Hogue, the commission was set up and all parties agreed to that to investigate the foreign interference in our democracy. You also indicated in that line of questioning that, and you confirmed in your opinion that the commission is the appropriate forum to deal with that with this issue. Now, you've also stated that you have not been contacted by Justice Hogue, and as Mr. Lloyd was asking the question, I guess I just want to clarify. Justice Hogue had access, or has access, to all unredacted documents from CSIS in regards to this matter of foreign interference. Do you believe that the commission would have made contact with you should there been any evidence from any source, any intelligence whatsoever, that your campaign or the campaign of any conservative leadership, 2022 leadership candidacy race was involved or had some impact on foreign interference?
I think that's a question best posed to Justice Hogue, but if asked to attend, I think that would have been the appropriate forum to attend, and I would have attended. But as I've said publicly before, I don't believe I have any new information myself to be added to this discussion, an investigation that isn't already in the public domain.
I wanted to get into kind of the political end for you civically. As has been indicated, Brampton has grown dramatically over the last decade or more, and what I've been struck by is, you are not immune to violence there. On November the 3rd, there was some demonstrations that occurred at both a Hindu and a Sikh temple, and the town, or the city of Brampton, was forced, in my opinion, to approve a bylaw prohibiting these nuisance demonstrations anywhere near places of worship. Now, I appreciate this is not the first occurrence that happened there, but what precipitated the city of Brampton from pursuing this sort of approach?
So, the goal of this bylaw was to make sure that there's a right and wrong place to protest, and my goal in introducing that bylaw was that places of worship should be safe spaces, and that whether you go to Gurdwara, a mandir, a church, a synagogue, a mosque, everyone should be able to go and pray free of violence, intimidation, and harassment. I know we have a constitutionally protected right to protest in this country, but we also have a charter protected right to religious freedom. And I think too often that right is trampled upon. And if you are, and there's legitimate protest, and if you want to protest the government of India, you can protest the government of India. I just don't want to, if you want to protest the government of Russia, you want to protest the government of China, you have that right. I just don't want to see anyone who is on their way to prayer circumvented in their efforts to do so. And so in our bylaw, I thought we took the right balance. We protected the right to prayer. But if a place of worship has a banquet hall and there's going to be a foreign government rally in that banquet hall, that would not be protected. It wouldn't restrict the right to protest. It is the basic religious freedom that is protected.
And fair enough. So I know you don't want to become political, but do you believe, or partisan in your political responses, but I mean, to me, when a city has to provide its own civic ordinances to try and deal with something that should be handled, through federal legislation, I find that troubling. Now, I appreciate that the city of Brampton felt necessary to protect the residents of Brampton. Do you believe that these protests had anything to do and linked back to Indian foreign interference?
So the tensions have been heightened ever since the RCMP revelations about the nature of the extrajudicial killing. And so a lot of the protests are linked to you'll hear organizers of the protest say their opposition is that they're not protesting the Hindu community, they're protesting the Indian government. And there's been responsive protests where they're protesting at a Gurdwara. And so what I found is that it simply just got out of control, and we needed better guidelines. And so protesting a foreign government is a legitimate protest, but these counter protest and protest against each other in front of a place of worship, it just it created an environment, an ecosystem that was ripe for ugly behavior, and unfortunately that's what we saw. But I go back to what I said before, and that's that the incidents where there was violence were a very few. There was very few examples, and they were bad actors, and they've since been charged, and hopefully they face the full consequences of the law. 99% of each community is kind and respectful of our laws.
Great, thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor.
Mr. Garrettson for 5 minutes.
Thank you very much for being here today, Mr. Brown. I don't have a lot of time, so I'm going to be precise, and I would request that you do the same in your responses. Before coming to this meeting today, did you receive any contact from Pierre Poilievre's office or any of his staff, or anybody that might be associated with him in regards to your
I did not speak to Pierre Poilievre or any of his staff.
In preparation for today, for today's meeting?
In preparation of today's meeting.
My second question. So when we get to the CBC, there are 5 individuals who are high up in your campaign who specifically said that Ms. Rempel-Garner was contacted by foreign diplomats and encouraged not to participate in your campaign. Are you telling this committee that you're unaware of that?
So the nature of the conversation.
Just a yes or no, Mr. Brown. Were you aware that any of them contacted her asking her to withdraw from your campaign?
Not withdraw from my campaign.
So the allegation that is made by these 5 individuals, you are claiming to be false. Yes or no? Yes or no?
What you asked me to assume that those 5 people made that allegation. I'm not sure they did.
Well, I mean, if you don't trust the CBC, the CBC says that they did. My question is very direct. 5 individuals came forward that were part of your campaign in senior positions in your campaign and said that Michelle Rempel-Garner, who is one of your co-chairs, was asked by a foreign diplomat to withdraw her support from your campaign. And you're saying that you're unaware of that.
I don't believe that she was asked to withdraw her support. I think it was about the language I used.
So we have established by what you've said here today that MP Rempel Garner was in contact with consulates, foreign consulates, the Indian consulate, and that she did relay that information to you. So do you believe, personally, your own belief, that she was contacted by the consul and asked not to participate in your campaign?
I don't believe she was asked not to participate in my campaign. I think she was the recipient of an angry phone call over the language I was using.
So you don't believe what those 5 individuals in your campaign said?
Well, I think you'd have to speak to those individuals yourself, because that's not something that I have heard.
So we've established that she's been in contact with the Consul General. You've already said that. You said that she's even relayed information to you from them. But yet we're to assume that it's unlikely that she was also contacted and asked not to participate in your campaign. And even to the extent that there was a conference call that she participated in where she said the same thing. Is that correct?
Yes, it was never brought to my attention that was, she was asked to leave the campaign.
What about your 2017 Ontario campaign? Vikram Singh, why was he, in your opinion, disqualified?
So I'd say that was a nomination contestant in Hamilton, Dundas, Ancaster, and he was someone the Indian government obviously was not supportive of. He wasn't disqualified, though.
So in that in that nomination, I understand that there was a settlement, and you probably signed an NDA there as well. I would remind you that you're not subject to that NDA while here at committee, and you are protected by privilege. In your opinion, was there any reason to believe that Vikram Singh was disqualified based on a foreign diplomat or foreign entity encouraging him to be disqualified?
So I believe the Indian government is very vocal on candidates they believe are worthy of support and those that are not. Vikram Singh was not someone that they supported.
When you say worthy of support, you believe that they're worthy of support on Canadian soil?
Correct.
Yeah. Okay. So, and by your own admission, you already said that they acted often these consul generals act in an aggressive manner, and that they do not make you comfortable. I mean, if that's not foreign interference, then what is, Mr. Brown?
Well, I think you're paraphrasing.
No, I'm actually not. I'm actually quoting exactly what you said. You said, quote, they did not make you feel comfortable. And you refer to their engagement with you as aggressive. How is that not foreign interference?
I think certainly some of their actions are in the gray.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Gerritsen. We move on to the third round now. Ms.
Thank you very much, Chair. I appreciate your testimony so far, Mayor Brown. Just a commentary first. I find it really interesting to watch Liberals make themselves dizzy, chasing their own tails, trying to find something that doesn't exist with no evidence to support whatever they're trying to find. So given the serious nature of foreign interference, it's perplexing that the Liberals would politicize this issue, single you out, purely based on your political affiliation. And I know you don't want to be partisan. You don't have to answer that unless you wish to do so. However, there is something that I have found or seen in the media and you deal with every single day, and that is the crime that's going on in your city. I can't imagine the pressure and the frustration you feel as a city council, as the mayor of that city. And can you explain to us what you deal with the gun violence that's happening there, the auto theft, the affordability crisis, and you're sitting here being sidelined on a political game, it appears?
Well, I would say, I was very critical about the response on auto thefts in this country, but I'm a fan of not just criticizing, but providing solutions. And in terms of auto thefts, I was asking for scanners for shipping containers. We've now received the first two scanners, and so I'm helpful for that assistance. Listen, I'm going to try to work with any party, any government to get results for my residents. And auto thefts finally are going down. So we made some progress by working collaboratively there. We still need to work on the bail system that lets too many of these offenders out after committing an auto theft, but we are making progress, and I'm hopeful for more progress.
Thank you very much. That's all I got.
Mr. Welch, you still have 3 minutes. And
I could take it.
Ms. Dancho.
Thank you, Mayor Brown. And I just want to give you the opportunity to highlight some of the primary issues in the Sikh diaspora community in Brampton. Can you outline some of those for this committee?
So I think today we've spoken about one issue, which is concern about foreign intervention and intimidation. But I think the concerns of Sikh Canadians are similar to the concerns of all Canadians. I think there's concerns about public safety. I think there's concerns about affordability, the cost of living. And so I think the concerns that Canadians have in common are much more similar. And sometimes, we can get lost in silos. And what I find in Brampton is that there may be many different communities, but when it comes down to, my job as mayor, they're probably all concerned about making sure we have enough police officers and that property taxes don't go up beyond the pace they can afford them. And usually there's much more concerns and frustrations, hopes and aspirations are much more similar.
Thank you. And I also have the pleasure of representing many Sikh Canadians, and they're some of the hardest working, generous people. And but I have heard from them, and maybe you've heard this as well, that they certainly came to Canada for freedom and opportunity, and also just figured that Canada would be safe and secure. I'm getting the sense in that community from what they've told me that they no longer feel that way because of the issue we're talking about, but also because of the public safety issues broadly. Are you getting that sense as well?
I think public safety is a big issue right now. It's why in Peel we're adding the most police officers we've ever added. I think there are many tools in the toolkit that need to be used to address this. But one issue I think has alarmed Canadians of Indian ancestry. Issue of extortions. That's something we've struggled with. We've had in Peel Region, since we set up our extortion task force, 70 extortion attempts. We've made 23 arrests, and there is concern that some of the extortions are linked to foreign criminal entities as well. And so I think that's an issue that has in Vancouver, Surrey, Edmonton, and in Peel Region alarmed and scared the community.
Great. Thank you, Ms. Dancho.